You're right. God does not inflict pain on those in purgatory. The pain derives from the fact that my own guilt will stand in unbearable contrast to the absolute love which God has for me. And so there's this picture of purgatory being a sinful soul in the presence of almighty love. Yeah, what does that
Right.
mean for the conversation between evangelicals and Catholics?
Well, I think it should at least reassure Protestants, whether or not they want to fully accept every facet of the Catholic doctrine of purgatory, that what Catholics are trying to say, at least in intention, is exactly what Protestants want us to say, which is what this, this anti-Catholic website said. He was trying to be cheeky. Jesus
Right.
is our purgatory, and I was like, actually, at the time Pope Benedict was the Pope, and I was like, actually, do you know Pope Benedict actually says almost precisely that? And he had written a book called Eschatology long before he was Pope, where he said basically, what you just pointed out, and then this gets rearticulated in his encyclical on hope, Spe Salvi, which draws a lot from that earlier work that he wrote before he was Pope. But he says purgatory has to be understood Christologically, or it's not a Catholic doctrine. And
Right.
he also uses this metaphor of fire, but drawing on another Catholic thinker, German Catholic thinker, philosopher Joseph Pieper, said fire is appropriate because fire turns other things into itself. And that's what Christ is doing with us, right? We're becoming like Christ. We're being incorporated into Christ. And so the encounter with Christ as fire, right? Christ as judge, but also as lover of our souls in the same person, right? That this one who loves us is also the judge. I mean, so there's another place in the book where I talk about how like judgment in Christ is good news. That doesn't mean it's easy. Right?
Right.
It's
Yep.
it's good news to be judged by Christ, who doesn't just condemn but loves and offers mercy. But he tells you what's wrong. and in the face of his grace and mercy and perfection, our own imperfections are going to be all the more glaring and therefore painful to us. But this is an interesting thing about the tradition on purgatory, is the saints affirm purgatory as painful, and also at the same time that the pain is something we welcome and even enjoy, which is not at all like the pain of hell. And so we have to think, okay, well, do we have any experience of pain that we enjoy in this life? And I think actually we do. I mean, a really basic one is like you go to the massage therapist and they find like the spot in under your
Right.
shoulder blade, and you're like, oh, that hurts. Please don't stop.
Right.
And like, so what's going on there? Well, we recognize in the pain the means of our healing, right? We're like, go after that. That's the right thing. That's what I need right now to be healed, is for you to go after the painful spot. And so, I mean, you can have other experiences more intense maybe than a physical massage. I mean, what if you're in marriage counseling and you suddenly hit upon that like deep childhood trauma or whatever it is, right? That's like tripping you up in your relationship with your spouse. And on the one hand, you're like, I'm terrified and afraid to talk about this and to go. And also you're like, no, we found it. Like we found the thing that makes sense of the problem. And now we're going after it. And so you have this kind of conflictual relationship with the pain, because on the one hand, it's pain. And on the other hand, you're like, no, this is what I need. And so the saints tell us that that's what the pain in purgatory is like. It's this pain where you're like, give me more.
Right.
let's do this. Let's get it done. Right.
Right.
C.S. Lewis says in Purgatory, by the way, C.S. Lewis is interesting because he's a Protestant who believes in purgatory,
Right.
and specifically in prayer for the dead, which he talks about in letters to Malcolm. But he says I'm paraphrasing just from memory, but it's something like the pain isn't the point, the treatment is the point, and the pain is more or less depending on what the treatment requires. Right? God isn't,
Right.
these sins need amount of pain units to be, um, propitiated or something like that. It's like, no, this person has this problem, and dealing with it is going to hurt as much as it hurts. But the point isn't the pain, the point is the problem, right? Any dentist is the same, right? I mean, if they're drilling out a tooth, it's not like, oh, you deserve this much drilling pain because of all the candy you ate and the teeth you didn't brush. Like, no, we got to get this tooth out, or we
Right.
got to get, we got to get to the roots here, and that's going to hurt as much or as little as it hurts, but we got
Yeah.
to do the job.
Yeah.